You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Ten, nine, eight, seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
All systems go.
You're listening to Sudbury News Talk
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
on the morning shift.
anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
Oh, yes. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift, where anything can happen and anything has been happening the last two mornings, actually. Not sure what's going on here, but something's happening, and it's a technical thing. So technical things happen, and here we are. Miracle that is Sudbury News Talk on CKLU 96.7 FM. Sorry for the 2 days of interesting glitches at the beginning. Just when you think you did everything right, something happens, and it is what it is. Anything can happen, Sudbury News Talk, not only in the news, anything can happen, but in the broadcast as well. So we're happy to be now live at CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio, CKLU, streaming online, cklu.ca. You can just click on the Radio Player Canada app, and you can take us with you and listen to us anywhere, anytime on your favorite device if you download that Radio Player Canada app. We're also streaming live at facebook.com/Sudbury News, youtube.com/Sudbury News. And we're also on demand afterwards. So if you aren't able to catch the show live, you can go back and watch the show later. And that's the miracle that is YouTube and Facebook. We're grateful to those two platforms for the time being that we're able to still be there. We were grateful for the time that we have had to be on those platforms for as long as we have, and we'll take it as it comes, and we'll have more on that. The CRTC released that they now have a registration for online news, and if you don't make the registry, they have a registry, that you have to have a news organization of at least $10 million a year of revenue. And then you don't have to worry about the November deadline to register your news. They're making it again. We'll see the smoke and mirrors that all is to end independent media in Canada. And there's those that will say, oh, that's a conspiracy theory. Yeah, that's a conspiracy theory, all right, until it happens. And so we'll talk a little. We'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into that today, and we'll talk more and more about it and get more of the facts on that. But we're grateful for the little bit of time that we still have to be here on the air. We're grateful for the platforms, the radio, the internet. And so thanks for being with us today, everyone. We're going to have a great show for you. We're going to have news, going to have some weather. The Wolves are in action this Friday, so maybe we'll hold off a bit and talking about their game on the road against Peterborough. But you can catch that game right here on CKLU 96.7 FM. They're 1-1 on the season in their opening weekend. They had 2 home games to open the season. One against the Brantford Bulldogs, in which they won 6-2, and one against the North Bay Battalion, in which they lost 2-1. So we're looking forward to a new Wolves season, fresh out of the gate. So let's get started with the show. Anyways, we'll be starting with a little bit of weather, and we'll be back right after that. Okay, and Sudbury weather brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. It's currently 15 degrees. It's clear, so it's warm, very warm for this time of year in the morning. Clear, muggy. Don't even have to read that off of a screen. I'm feeling it. It's sunny today. You can expect sun. Fog patches dissipating this morning. And high of 26. With the humidex, it'll be 30. So rather warm and muggy day for this October the 3rd, 2023. Tonight, clear. Fog patches developing before morning, low 15. Wednesday, mainly sunny. Fog patches again dissipating in the morning, and the high will be 26 with the humidex tomorrow, 31. So 3 rather very warm days in a row, hovering around the 30-degree mark with the humidity. It is October. It is your extended forecast, again, tomorrow, 26, before the humidex, which would bring it to about 31. Mainly sunny tomorrow. Thursday, however, this is where it starts to go down. 60% chance of showers, high of 17 only. And the next day, 30% chance of showers, 15, so it's going down. And on Saturday, 60% chance of showers and a high of 9, just in time for your long weekend, Thanksgiving holiday weekend. And 30% chance of showers on Sunday with a high of only 8. And it kind of rebounds a bit, high of 10 forecasted for Monday, mix of sun and cloud. But that's, how things change. For all we know, it could be, like it was the last week. It was sunny all the way through the week. And then as we started getting towards it, very little just pure sunny days. So maybe it'll be the opposite. Maybe we're forecasting some rain and it'll be totally sunny. That's all we can hope for. Look at your satellite. This was taken at 3 a.m. Rather clear looking over Sudbury area. A few clouds coming in from the northwest, but it does look like it's going to be a rather clear day. So that is your Sudbury weather, brought to you by SudburyWeather.ca. We'll be back. News headlines, morning shout-outs, and a little deep dive into Bill C-11, what is all anticipated to end what we know today to be independent journalism. So we'll be back with that and more right after this. All right, so welcome back with us. We are live on CKLU. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. And there we have many people joining us. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow, but mainly comment, because this is our community conversation. And even if you're not just from Sudbury and area, make sure to chime in. We have had many people from around the world saying, hey, I'm here from South Africa, here from the Philippines, and many, many more places. And whether you're just checking in, you're never been to Sudbury, didn't even know it existed, but you enjoy the content on the show, we'll do our best to make it relevant to you, no matter where you are in the world. But we definitely focus on Sudbury and Ontario and Canada, but also things that affect us, some themes that everyone can relate to throughout the world. So thanks for joining us. And speaking of that, we have some people jumping on here already from YouTube. Monique, good morning, Sudbury, with a nice smiley sunshine emoji. Excuse me. And Judy, first to the party on Facebook. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, Judy. And Vin, morning, as usual, and hope you're having a fabulous Tuesday morning. Belinda always has a positive comment for the day. Good morning. If you have been criticizing yourself for years and it hasn't worked, try accepting yourself and see what happens. That's cool. Yeah, if you've been doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, going a little insane, try a little bit something different. Try and be a little bit more positive with yourself, and you'll find when you're positive with yourself, you'll be more positive with others, and then it reciprocates, and then continues to just channel more and more positivity. Thank you very much for that, Belinda. That's awesome. Mona, good morning. Thanks for being with us. Hope you're having a great Tuesday. And Marianne as well. Good morning to everyone from Barrie. Speaking of people that are joining us from out of town, thanks for being with us this morning. And David, good morning. Take care. Stay safe. Good morning, David. Thanks for being with us. Hope you're feeling better these days. And also Marianne says, I'll take the warm weather, and I will too. Good morning from Espanola. That's Denise. Good morning, Denise. Thanks for being with us. And Pam, good morning to you as well. And Louise, good morning, everyone, with a smiley sunshine emoji. And so thanks for joining us, everyone. We got lots to talk about today, as usual. Our news headlines will be coming from Sudbury.news, which is a website that's a news aggregator, not only of local news, which is very important, but also provincial and national and international news. However, on this show, we mainly go over the headlines that cover local news in our segment here, but then we'll usually cover a topic or two. One person I remember complaining that when a Nick was on, we were covering too many topics, but that's because a Nick hadn't been on for a while, and we were kind of catching up on all the things that were going on in the city, and there's been a lot. So, and speaking of that, we were just talking about having a special broadcast where we have 3 of our new counselors on to ask them how they found it being, their first year of being on city council. And I believe that's going to be on October 25th. So mark your calendars for that. We'll have all 3 of them on. We'll have just a discussion, round table, if you will. And it's probably going to be a little bit lighter than it was with Mike a little bit earlier last week on Friday, where we were talking about some of the issues going on in the city and that. And who knows, we might touch on some of those as well. And hopefully this is the beginning of something coming in the future where we can have them on more regularly and have our people in the city questioning them on the things that they feel are important, because, these town hall meetings, it's like having a virtual town hall every week or whatever, right? On a regular basis. So I think it's going to be valuable to the community, and looking forward to that. Tracy, good morning. Thank you for being with us today, each and every day. And Jerome as well. Good morning from Cambridge. Wow. Yes, Cambridge. Well, we have people from all over Ontario today. Good morning, Jerome. Thanks for being on today. And we have Borderline Pam on YouTube. I love when a Nick is on, for sure. There'll be more of a Nick. You could have your dose of a Nick tomorrow, because she'll probably be on tomorrow and possibly Thursday as well this week. So we could have a Nick on for 2 days this week. And I'm committing her here, but I'm going to follow up with her. I'm pretty sure she'll be on. So yes, I do like when she's on, as well as our other guests as well too, because everybody brings something to the table, and that was the idea. But not everybody feels comfortable being on camera and speaking. There's a lot of reluctance to that. I myself feel the same way, but just had to burn the boat and jump off the boat and do it, and just say, okay, I'm going to do it now. And that's what happened. And I find that the more and more you do it, you still feel a little bit inadequate, but at the same time, what are you going to do with your life? Feel a little bit of inadequacy every once in a while, but you still got to go ahead and try new things. And I knew there was a need for this type of a show in the city, maybe other cities as well, or even the country or the world. There's more need for this kind of conversation to go on. And anyway, so we did it. And now we invite as many other people that would like to be a part of it to come on, and, whether it's commenting or whether it's being a guest on the show. It seems to be we're starting to generate, just as the government may be shutting people like us down, we're just starting to get our mojo on. So, but we're hoping, we don't want to look at everything, defeatist in a defeatist way and say, well, there's no hope doing it anyways. We're just going to continue to do it and hope for the best, right? So we'll have more on that later, and why we might be thinking the way that we are. Open line of communication between council and residents is a good beginning. They need to hear our concerns. They need to hear our the direction that we would like Sudbury to take 100%, 150% on that for sure. And I think that's the idea of these town councils, or at least the optics of them anyways, is to go around and listen to citizens. However, I heard they were vetting questions and stuff like that, where they were only allowing certain questions to come through, but we want every question to come through here. However, we are limited as well on this show, unfortunately, because as we're interviewing and as we're discussing, comments are coming in. And so I find myself having to read the comments, the questions, as well as, at least listen to what our guest is saying. So that way the conversation continue to go. You ever see someone who's in a conversation and they're not really listening to somebody and they're like, yeah, yeah, Well, you might experience it with your partner or your children or whatever, or your friends. However, especially publicly, you don't want to just be going, yeah, and then you ask them a question, they just basically gave you the answer and you're showing you weren't really listening to them. So it's hard to moderate, but we will get better and better as we progress with the show. Because just like Mike Parent said when he was on the show on Friday, we want full transparency. I think people really appreciate transparency. You can just feel it. You feel when someone's being honest and true and transparent. I think something needs to be done about 720 Bruce Ave, the Balmoral building. The seniors in that building are living every day in fear to the drugs, the violence, and the human trafficking going on. It's really bad. Yes, we've talked about that on a previous show where the police had, the sting operation there and basically made a bunch of arrests, but I'm sure it didn't solve the problem in the building. It's probably still happening. And yes, I've heard a lot of things going on there. And yes, that is definitely something that needs to be looked at and dealt with. So thanks for being with us, and thanks for starting us off on our conversation here. Denise also says, just a heads up, drug dealers also traffic kids. Yes, I think that's what Pam was just saying about things that are going on in that building, right? So human trafficking as well. So this is crazy. It's a crazy time we live in. And we'll try to at least try to make some sense of it, and maybe try to have this be a forum where people can express their feelings about it, and maybe spark those who are in positions to make a difference. And we are always in a position of making a difference individually as well. So what is it we can do? And then hopefully, those that are in a higher level of influence to make decisions to help with these issues are within an earshot of the show, or check it out, or somehow it gets to them, and we can be, we can make a positive difference in our community and in our world. It's a city-owned building, therefore the city should step up. Oh, interesting. Yes, you are right. That is true. And when we have the counselors on too, on a more regular basis, this will be something. And I know for sure, Natalie, watching the show or listening to it or whatever, there's things we've said and she's messaged me saying, I am going to bring this to council. What was that video you played on the last show? I want to show this to council. What was the thing you said before? I want to make sure that, it is being heard, our concerns. And, but we want that to happen on a more regular basis and have open dialogue between the city and us as citizens, right? The people that live here. We're the ones who have to live with the decisions each and every day. Okay, so news headlines brought to you by Sudbury.news. It's our news aggregator, local news here. So this is what the page looks like. If you come on it, you'll get that with no Google ad on it, because we still have to figure out what the heck's going on with our Google ad situation. But it just brings in all the local news headlines, as you can see here. And so Denise is just saying gatekeepers need to be removed. Yes. The will of the people matters. 100%, 200% on that one, for sure. But there is a struggle, right, between power and people. There always has been through all time on this earth, a struggle between power and people. Remember the term speaking truth to power? It still exists today. The people in power have a harder time hearing what you have to say, because some of the things you're saying might inhibit their power to some extent. So anyways, if that's something that you've just heard for the first time or whatever, ponder on that a little bit, look into it, and you'll see that there's a lot behind it. Okay, so Northern Ontario colleges rely on students from India to survive. Is that news to you? That's what a lot of our educational institutions have been relying on for the past, over, 5 years or so. If you go to any of our institutions today, the halls are filled with people. You would think you were in India or another country. And that's not said in any derogatory way at all. It just means the numbers are noticeable when you're walking through the halls. You can definitely tell that, and each of those students are paying top dollar for their education too, right? So these institutions are relying on international students to be viable, basically. Laurentian University, Cambrian, Collège Boreal, just speaking of Sudbury institutions, but that's going on all over Ontario and all over Canada. Colleges in northeastern Ontario rely more heavily than other schools on international revenue, notably from students from India. Developments including India suspending visa services in Canada amid allegations the country was involved in the killing of the Canadian Sikh leader, show how policies and geopolitical landscapes can change. And that's from CBC, and they were probably talking about that on the show this morning, but I wasn't driving this morning, so I wouldn't have caught that story. But anyways, any of you that were and caught it, you can catch more about that on CBC's website. If you want to read more about that, just click on the link on our website. It'll go right to their story. Another Sudbury Star reporting, Sudbury mom mourning her brutally murdered son and the slow pace of justice. Christine McGregor says she has lost faith in the bail and justice system after her son was stabbed and ran over with his own vehicle in 2021. So more on that from the Sudbury Star. You want to read that on that story. A couple more comments coming in. This is Marianne. As my mom would say, money is the root of all evil. For sure, going back to the power in the people, right? One great rap group I used to enjoy in the 90s was Public Enemy. And it might have even been in the late 80s. Public Enemy. They had a song called Fight the Power. And I used to think that was it was an entertaining song. There's some humor in it from Flava Flav. He always brought the humor to the table in that group. Rather, other than him, it was a pretty militant, they would dress up in military uniforms and they had a message. They were like, hey, back off, bucko, to the system, and it's no different today. The system is like a chameleon. It'll change. It's got many colors and many shapes, but never doubt for a minute that the absolute power can corrupt absolutely. Just to jump off of Marianne's mom's saying that money is the root of all evil. Absolute power could corrupt absolutely, and money is not evil. The love of money is what is evil, and that is probably a little bit more of a truth for sure. But if you didn't have money, you wouldn't love it as much. So yeah, for sure, they go hand in hand. But I've seen a lot of people with money that were the best people in the world. I've seen people without money who you just don't want to be anywhere near them. So, it can go both ways. But at the same time, money can't ever, if you're ever involved in when somebody passes away in your family and there's an inheritance, then you see what kind of things money can do to people. It's very interesting. There's very few families or very few people that are involved in an inheritance where there aren't some questionable, weird kind of things that happen. It's crazy what international students are charged for college. It seems unfair. Yeah, it is. I remember in Cambrian myself, just recently, I went back to school in 2017, and we had in our class one international student, because it was communications, it was public relations. Anyways, and he came to me one day and he was like, you know what they're charging me for school? Because they all find out what Canadian students are charged compared to what they're charged. And it's like, what? It's like, but he understood later when he got his first job, and he came to me running down the hall saying, "Look at my check. How come I'm only getting this much? I thought I was being paid minimum wage at the time, so let's say $15 an hour." But he did the math, and so I'm only being paid like $9 an hour. I said, "Yeah, but do you see all these deductions over here? So that's Canadian taxes, and they come off what you make." He goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah. You go and buy something, it's 13% on whatever you buy. That's why our school costs a little less, is because throughout our lives, we're paying exorbitant amounts of taxes. So if in the end, we might even be paying more than you, but you just see the actual cost of what you're paying for school, right? So it's crazy. It's a lot of money. So Marianne also, OMG, yes. Death brings out what people are really like. It's sad for sure. Whenever there's an inheritance. Today our inheritance is taxed. Oh, and their debt also must be paid in the end. Most get next to nothing. Your debt is passed on to your family. That's what I thought too. I thought that was the case. And some people said to me, no, that's not the way it is. So I'd have to look more into that. I know it's things like that are happening around me as we speak. And I will definitely have to look into things like that. I think people that are power hungry and need to stay in power have to do a lot of horrible things in life to hang on to that position. You lose your soul. And I think there's a lot of people that will agree with you on that, Belinda. In order to be the king of the hill, it's paved with a lot of things you have to do in order to get to the top. And I don't think they're all benevolent things. I would think it would be rather difficult to do without stepping on people, crushing people, doing things that even yourself you would regret at some point, you would think. But anyways, yeah, that's what I would agree with as well. So more on the Sudbury mom story, Christine McGregor. Very sad to see what the justice system, it's not always justice for everyone, right? And the immigration program, speaking of immigrants and the school, it also affects our employment situation. So immigration program allowing Sudbury businesses to expand. The rural and northern immigration pilot is designated to fill labor shortages in the community. So we definitely know there's a need for skilled labor, and we have a massive immigration policy and initiative in this country. And Northern Ontario is receiving a lot of a lot of the people that are immigrating from this program into Northern Ontario. And we see it. It's noticeable, right? And I guess we won't really know the pros or the cons until after everyone's integrated into our communities and really see the full effects of that. There are pros and there are cons, but it is what it is, and it's happening, and there's nothing really anyone's going to be able to do about it at this point. And so I think there are many pros for sure. And there are some cons as well, but we'll talk about that more as we see the pros and the cons. So if the person who passed the money, then debts need to be paid. However, if the estate has no money, the debts are wiped. Okay, so that is true too, I guess. If the estate doesn't have the money to pay for the debts, they're wiped. Pam's father had many debts, and he was on ODSP and had no money to pay his debts, and they were wiped, basically like going bankrupt or whatever. So I appreciate that clarification. And Denise said she was her father's executor. Your debt is passed on to the family. Okay, it must be paid. And that's the law. So, okay, we have two conflicting things, and this is similar to what conversations I've had with certain people. How about we get to the bottom of this and we'll have it on a subsequent show? Because I have to actually find this out for my personal life too. It happened to me. This is Louise. I was an executor and had to pay off the debt of the deceased person, and this was before the inheritance tax came in. Interesting. Okay, good. So thank you for some of the clarification and some of your real world experiences with that. I think having more educational. This is just giving me an idea too, to have like different people from the community on who are experts in different things like that. Just having them on, and we can all pick people's brains. Maybe a lawyer, different types of lawyers, different types of real estate people, different type of people who know about what happens when a family member dies. Things that we can all, learn a little bit from. And so thanks for that idea. That's awesome. Elmwood Residence for Older Adults is like a League of Nations. So there's a 55 resident complex in Coniston that just opened for seniors. So this is good to see that there's more and more development going on in the city. We'll have talk about an open house going on in New Sudbury for a new building that just opened up for seniors as well. And good to see that there's that controversial 6-story building in the South End for seniors. That was, again, controversial for those living in the area. But again, we need the units in the city. We do have a housing crisis and housing shortage. Okay, so conversation still going on about the, what happens when a person dies and their debts. So if you have anything about that, you can put that in the comment section. We'll move on in the show. However, just because of time, there is a new mental health service, One Stop Talk, and it's a free short-term counseling being offered to youth and families across the province, online or by phone. So that's coming from CTV Northern Ontario. It's again on our news aggregator at sudbury.news. You can check that out. And for more information on that, just click on the story, watch the video, or read the article. So violent mugging in downtown. 2 arrested. This is also covered by CTV. It was caught on surveillance cameras. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But what does CTV have to say about it? And then we'll be right back, and the Sudbury Star covers it as well.
2 suspects have been arrested in Sudbury following a disturbance Sunday evening. It happened just before 9 o'clock in the area of Riverside Drive and Elgin Street, where a man was physically assaulted and robbed. Police say they were able to track down the suspects, one from Sudbury and one from Mississauga, after reviewing video surveillance footage. You can read more about this story on our website at ctvnewsnorthernontario.ca.
And yes, you can. And that's a good plug, just like we were saying, for CTV as well. So their news shows up on our news aggregator, and there you can just click on the story. And it's a free service we offer to the journalistic outlets in our community. So they have one place where all their news lives, and then when someone clicks on it, it goes right to their website, so they can collect the revenue as they get clicks and things like that and eyeballs on their page. So it's not like we're stealing people's news like we've been accused of by a few people who just don't understand how things work. It's a free service. We're not charging the news outlets to put all their news in a location where everybody can then go to and see all the headlines and then click on their story. It's making it easier for people to actually get their local news, right? Good morning, Dennis. Thanks for being with us. Speaking of people joining us from around the province, thanks for being here. Denise says, okay, more inheritance things here. And so if maybe one day we'll have an expert on, speaking of that, just to give us the lowdown. But anyways, so caught on video, 2 suspects are in custody, a third still at large after a violent beating. And that was not, those words were not used on TV or to, just in the headline, or in the headline, violent mugging in downtown Sudbury. She didn't mention anything about violence in her story, but the headline, violent. So how violent was it? Violent beating. And how did they catch the suspect? Through surveillance. through cameras, right? So this is something that we talked about on the show with the new cameras that catch us for speeding that the city is installing here in Sudbury, and the idea of more cameras and what it means for the city. So Sudbury Star also covered this, but I'm not sure why it's not coming up here. It was here and now it's not here. Things like this happen all the time, by the way. I don't, on the show, you'd be surprised how many times it happens. I'll do prep for the show. I'll come on, everything's in a certain spot, and then I go to get it, and it's either, oh, here it is. Eye in the Sky, right? So it's just me then, not being able to see it. Eye in the Sky films 3 men beating and robbing victim in Sudbury, right? So the idea of this eye in the sky, seeing everything. So people are like, well, yeah, we need more of this so we can catch people like this doing things, right? So there is going to be this move towards more cameras, whether it's catching people for speeding, whether it's catching crimes. And the more that we see the benefits of the cameras everywhere, the more that they're going to be implemented, the more that we become what's called a surveillance state. So there are pros to being a surveillance state. The cons are that we're a surveillance state. Everything is on camera. And what happens with the data? Who's able to see this? We're talking about power, right? Like whoever's in power is able to control the cameras and do with what they will with the footage on the cameras. And so this is the kind of world we're becoming, where everything's on camera. Cameras for control. And migrants are an excuse. So that's interesting. And some people like having cameras everywhere. However, cameras not only catch crimes, but cameras have saved innocent people from being charged, people who had no alibi. However, they are seen on camera away from the crime scene. For sure, that's what I mean. There's so many positive things about cameras. I don't think we're going to be able to stop them. I think they're going to be everywhere. However, some of the dark sides of cameras we've seen, if you want to say it's a dark side, is that China uses them. That's the most surveyed state in the world. And they have what's called a social credit score based on the information that they gather from the cameras. So because they can basically monitor you 24/7 and know where you are at any given time through all the cameras, they issue credits if you do good things, do good deeds, or abstain from bad ones. It's like someone said, why don't you throw someone $20 into a lottery? All the people that aren't speeding on these cameras and catching their license plates, throw them into a lottery, and every month give away some money to encourage people to not speed. Well, this is the same idea, but it's done digitally through a social credit score. So everything's keeping track of everybody's movements. And then AI comes into the picture as well, because why would you want people constantly recording the fact that people have done these good deeds? So it's put into an AI algorithm, everything you're doing, and rewarding you or punishing you or taking credits away if you do things that aren't deemed to be favorable to the society, whoever's making the rules, or the rules of the social credit system coming to a city near you, right? And we can see how this is done. So we see right away, positive thing here. We found these criminals who violently attacked somebody in downtown Sudbury. And that's going to be the case. So their police will definitely, it'll make their job way easier, and it'll make us safer, but it'll make us 100% 24 hours a day surveyed. Safety is traded for freedom of people knowing everything about you. So you give up your safety for surveillance, right? I know. So yeah, you exchange it for safety. You say, I can be surveyed 24/7. you know. For some, it's an invasion of privacy because they're being monitored every move. Oh, for sure. So Bob's here on YouTube. Good morning. Good morning, Bob. I think we're under surveillance without cameras anyway. And that is true too, right? Your phone, basically, if you have a phone, a smartphone, it knows everywhere you go because of Siri and other similar technology. Your phone is listening to you 24/7. It has to, right? In order for you to go, Siri, I have a question, it has to be listening to you or it would not know you said Siri, right? So it's listening, it's documenting. Facebook also, I learned during my time in university in communications, they keep records of everybody. You can download the information Facebook has on you. It's a long process. I remember they had to give us all the steps and you had to follow them meticulously. And then it came to a file and it said, you can download the file that Facebook has on you, all the information, every click you've ever made, every video you've ever watched, every message you've ever sent to anybody. And it's not only that, it's where you went after Facebook as well, because when you agree to the terms and everything on Facebook, they're allowed to track you after, as long as you go on their website and you're a member or whatever, and you're on Facebook, they could then track you afterwards and listen to you through your microphone of your computer. They can then, you're giving them permission to track every move you make online. And if you take your phone with you and you have Facebook on your phone, obviously, same thing. So you have Facebook who's gathering all the information they can on you. You have Apple, if you have an Apple phone, they know all the information on you. Google, which is on all devices, they have similar ways to track everything you do. So all these different companies, it's like a race to who can get the most data from anybody these days. Data is the new economy. So surveying all of us. So they know who we are. It's basically a commodity. Your data is a commodity. You are a commodity. Right? So now as you get more surveyed and these cameras everywhere, it's a similar thing. It's just who's controlling the cameras. Who's gathering the information? What are they doing with that information? And what's possible to do, even though it's not happening now? What are the possibilities in the future that could be done because of the technology? Are we aware of that? Can we see it coming? Oh, Denise, good morning, everyone. All have a wonderful day. So a lot of comments coming in here. I wanted to get to a short video I wanted to play about something similar, right? So this, as we're getting more and more surveyed and more of these cameras are coming in and we're being tracked more and more, the idea of free information being shared is being censored. So as one thing is coming up and we're getting more and more cameras, we're getting more and more, surveyed and watched and tracked. But then there seems to be this movement towards squashing a certain voice that's able to speak, and that's independent media. So you're not able to talk openly about these things, maybe to say, hey, maybe there's some dangers about this and just make people go, oh, CBC never said there was anything wrong with it. I thought everything was fine. So that type of thing. So I'll just stop talking and have more on that here. This is a gentleman from Post Media. He's now an independent journalist as well, but he also, he writes, he's an independent journalist, and he writes for different journalistic outlets in the country, one of them being Post Media. He's also been in the military, and here he begins his spiel. It's on the new CRTC regulation or registry that they're creating and what it's for, similar to the long gun registry the Liberal government came out with. But he at the beginning is making a plea for some people to sponsor him, because he doesn't have any way to make money anymore, because he's got to just get it from people like you. And he's asking for, hey, can you just make a little donation if it's possible? But at the same time, we'll just check in with him. And this is, he calls it Caden's Right. And his name is David Caden. All right, here you go. More on that here.
But I've got to repeat this And I'm always being told, you don't talk about the money enough, David. And I don't, because it's not something I've ever had to do. As a working journalist, as an Air Force officer, I never really had to raise money. But I've got to do it now because I tell you, and that's really what we're talking about today, is that what can happen to people like myself, independent news broadcasters who are doing this, and Justin Trudeau and his Liberal government are out to get us. And while I'm reminding you of that, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell, ring the bell, because if you do that, we're beating Trudeau's censorship. And that's what we're talking about today. You remember Bill C-11, the online streaming act? Remember that? And it was all about Canadian content and how it was going to make, we're going to ensure that we're going to read Canadian news the rest of our lives. Well, the CRTC, Canadian Radio, Television, Telecommunications Commission, yes, I remembered, they came out on Friday with a declaration of that they are going to start producing an online news registry. But don't worry, folks. If you're not making $10 million a year, you won't have to register by the November 28th deadline. However, folks, when you read the information, it appears very tenuous that this threshold, as they like to call it, is in fact going to stay very much of a threshold. And I'm very concerned about what's going on here, because I believe we are seeing the beginning of a massive online registration on par with what the Chrétien government did with the long gun registry. This is all about seeing who is out there broadcasting nasty things about Justin Trudeau and the Trudeau government. The CRTC is supposed to be a regulatory agency, an arm's length from the government, but it's clearly pushing and promoting the Liberal policies here. It's creating an online news registry, and that has not been lost by a lot of journalists and commentators around the world. And I encourage you to read my piece in the Post Millennial today. Could be up by now. And we explain a bit more of it there. But Michael Geist, fantastic professor of law at the University of Ottawa, is studying this problem comprehensively, and he has put an excellent piece out in Substack today. It's Michael Geist. I encourage you to read that. Have a look at what he's saying, because this is all about the survivability of independent newscasters, broadcasters. Exactly what I'm doing. Am I concerned? Of course I'm concerned. I don't come on here and tell you lies. There's no misinformation, disinformation here. I don't use clickbait so you'll come to the station by telling you every week that Justin Trudeau is resigning or Justin Trudeau is out of here. I say he should resign, but I'm under no illusion he's going to do that, especially when he's getting no pressure to do so from the Conservative opposition. They were still looking for an apology from Trudeau, not a resignation, over this Nazi Waffen-SS fiasco, which remains front and center. And we're going to continue to talk about that this week. There's fresh information about that. But in terms of internet censorship, C-11 is coming to pass exactly as we predicted. It is going to be a means, a mechanism to control the internet, to ensure that people are not allowed to say what they want to say, to produce the news they want to produce. It's not just about Canadian content. If it was just about Canadian content, I wouldn't worry. 90% of my material is Canadian content. I'm not worried about that. I cover the Parliament Hill. I cover the federal government largely. Sometimes provincial news, sometimes municipal news, sometimes U.S. news. But 75 to 90% of the time, it's federal Canadian news. So I'm not concerned about that. I am concerned about internet censorship because there's worse coming with a bill coming. It hasn't been named yet, but in its previous incarnation, when they tried to get it through the first time, it was called the Online Safety Act. And guess what? That bill has just passed. Same bill, same name, same effects, same objectives, which is to silence independent media by saying, hey, we don't like your news. We're going to call it malinformation. They're actually using that word in Britain. Call it misinformation, call it disinformation, call it whatever you want, but it's what the government says they're going to ban, they're going to prosecute, they're going to stop, they're going to censor, and that's what this next bill is going to be about. It's going to be about shutting down people who disagree with the Trudeau government. And that's coming, and we have got to stop it. We've got to get rid of Trudeau before this bill comes into effect. It's going to be more difficult to repeal than it is simply to stop it before it happens.
And then that's all about, stopping other voices, right? Like who is against us. You can't just have open dialogue and open discussion. You need to just shut down the other side. And what does that remind you of? I think I saw a comment here, looking more and more like China all the time. Correct, right? So we see this movement, we see these communist type things happening. It doesn't only happen here, however. We see it happening in the United States as well. The other day, I just heard the CBC talking about, Donald Trump. They gave the headline. Just give a little short story. Oh yeah, he's been indicted, and he'll no longer be able to practice business in the United States anymore, and all this stuff. And obviously, they don't want his name to be on the ballot of for president. And so without me, so just again, this isn't just happening here, it's happening in the United States as well. And I don't care what you're hearing about on our mainstream government approved sanctioned media, you also have to hear the other side as well. And so if you have ears to hear, you can hear. So here's Tucker, one of the best people to formulate, communicate ideas that I've ever seen.
If you've ever wondered why it's taken you so long to figure out what's happening now in American politics, don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. It's hard for most Americans to comprehend the total dishonesty of American liberalism. Virtually nothing the liberal says is true. And the lies are not ordinary lies. The lies are so brazen, so aggressive and unending that it's difficult for a normal person to understand what's happening. 30 years ago, for example, liberals began to lecture us, softly at first and then in an increasingly high volume, about tolerance. How could you have known then that they planned, in fact, to usher in the most intolerant age in American history? They've done that now, but few people saw it coming. We shouldn't make the same mistake again. Liberals are now telling us they plan to protect American democracy, and that's the clearest possible sign that they intend to end it. 13 months from this week, the United States will hold a national election. In a democracy, citizens can vote for the candidate of their choice. That's not just a feature, it's the defining fact of the electoral system. The people rule. They can send anyone they want to Washington because they're in charge. But this year, in the name of protecting democracy, liberals have decided to strip Donald Trump's name from the ballot in states across the country. Trump is the front runner in the presidential race. He's currently beating Joe Biden in the polls. Yet liberals have decided that you should not be allowed to elect him president. That's not democracy. It's the opposite. It's totalitarianism. Just this morning, Donald Trump appeared in court in New York in a civil case brought by the state's attorney general that was designed explicitly to keep him out of the White House. That case is part of a larger legal barrage against Trump that so far includes a total of 91 felony counts, every one of them politically motivated. But today's civil case is especially absurd. In fact, it's hard to overstate its ridiculousness. In sum, Trump stands accused of inflating the value of collateral used to secure loans that he has already paid back with interest. In other words, there is no injured party in this case. The biggest banks in the world assessed the risk and they made a profit, as they almost always do. Not a single person was defrauded. For this non-crime, Trump and his children are in the process of losing their homes and their businesses. Here's MSNBC's live coverage of the hearing today. And as you watch, pay special attention to the judge in the case, Arthur Engoron.
And there you see President Trump, the former president, I should say, next to his attorney, and that's Chris Kise, who we expect to make the opening statements here. And then this, Judge Engoron, I guess, is Judge Engoron.
There he is, the judge, mugging like he's on stage in a middle school play, grinning, preening for the camera. Arthur Engoron is thrilled to be on MSNBC. It's nauseating. This is not a legal proceeding. This is a grotesque parody of the system that our forefathers created, the fairest in the world, that in the years since has been seized by power worshippers like Arthur and Gorin. This is a dangerous moment. Without a legitimate legal system, people will no longer follow the law, and the country will collapse. This is not about Trump. This is about preserving the United States of America. But Trump is at the center of the story. And so today, for an overview of what exactly the strategy to prevent Trump from running for president and to end our current system, we turn to Victor Davis Hanson, who joins us now. Professor, thank you very much.
So we'll have to leave it there. It was a great interview. If you want to watch it, you just go on to Twitter, or formerly Twitter. It's now X, and you can watch that video in its entirety. I just wanted to play, you hear so many things on our mainstream, so-called mainstream media here in the country, and it's very one-sided, and we very often don't hear the full picture, right? So you have to hear another perspective. It's like going to court and only hearing one side. You're only going to think that person is right all the time. But as soon as the other lawyer comes up and starts to talk, you go, wait a minute. I thought I knew what was going on. And if you don't get the two perspectives, you'll oftentimes, or more, they say there's two sides and the truth, right? So you have to listen to all voices going on around. And we are very isolated, insulated, if you will, in terms of information that we get, especially in Sudbury, especially in Ontario, and especially in Canada. We're in the most socialist city, in the most socialist, one of the most, BC is more socialist than us, one of the most socialist provinces. Sure, you might say Doug Ford is the premier, but our system systematically is socialist. And our news is definitely socialist. There's no doubt about it. And so you're getting that perspective everywhere you go. Work, everyone you talk to at work, they're of that mindset. They just repeat what they hear on the CBC. You get that whenever you start waking up to other perspectives, and you're like, wait a minute. You ever try saying something of the opposite point of view at the water cooler at work? Just try making someone think, oh, do you really know that that's what happened? I remember in college, the teachers, the professors just saying, well, you know how Donald Trump is. He's just a little kid in a grown-up's body or something. And everyone agreed with the teacher. And I would put my hand up and I said, I think he's done a lot of good things too. And everyone laughed. And it was like, wow, like really? Like someone is just pure wrong and evil all the time. There's nothing good they've ever done. Like really? Honestly? So, and that's the way that it's positioned in our news. And so subtly as well. They're very crafty at how they word things. And so you just want to hear a different perspective. That's all that's about. Now, whether Tucker's a real journalist or whether he smoked too long and he took too long to quit smoking, or he wears hearts on his underwear, whatever it is about his person, if you do listen to people at CBC, you have to question them the same way. Say, what journalism school did you go to? How do you gather your information? Is it bias? What kind of underwear do you wear? If you're looking at somebody with much critique, look at the other side with that much critique, and you'll tell how biased you are, how much bias you have. If it's hard to look at someone on your side that you have a easy time believing for some reason, and looking at both sides, I find my life has been so much more enriched by looking at all the sides. And I would encourage everyone else to do it, because I know for me, it's been liberating, basically, to be able to critique both sides the same way. And in Sudbury, we do not get that perspective at all. I wish I could then be a critic of someone like a Tucker Carlson or whatever. I wish we were in that day and age where I can critique, but they're so silenced and so not listened to that I just need to get their voice out there, at least in part of the conversation. So thanks for being with us today. Lots to talk about as usual. We'll be back same time, same place, on the same station, the same platforms, God willing, tomorrow between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM. Have a great and wonderful Tuesday, everyone. We'll see you on the flip side on Wednesday, and stay safe and ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.